what we'll end up doing is we will not contend with it. And that's what we're talking about today, confronting Jezebel and her intimidation tactics. See, we cannot let Jezebel, okay, to go unchallenged. You may want to write that one down. You cannot. Maybe you write it down and say, I cannot. I can no longer, especially you men, okay? Men, I'm talking to you for just a moment here. You are the leader of your home, okay? I don't really care what society says. I don't care how they're painting it and they're shifting it and they're trying to do this and they got all these movements. That's the collective, okay? Men, you need to be that man in your home. You need to be that God man in your home, not the tyrant leader, not the controller, not the narcissistic abuser, not the dominator, but the manager of your home. Take back your home. We need men to step up. I said it before, we have a male problem, M-A-L-E. But why do we have that? Because the collective mind, or the collective, that Jezebel network, okay, has been doing this for a very long time. And if you will look at history, you'll find that throughout history, even modern day history, within the last 100 to 150 years, how male men, M-A-L-E, have been emasculated, have been, slandered, have been really tricked, duped, to get them to come out of their position. But that's why I'm saying this today about confronting Jezebel, because that's a spirit, a principality that's in operation to get us men to be what I refer to as girly men, as it were, where we don't want to say anything. We're afraid to rock the boat, because if we say anything, the next thing you know, now we as men, now we're women haters, or we're abusers, or we're male chauvinists. Okay, we're called all those names, but that's what the collective does. That's what the Jezebel network, that principality, does. We can no longer allow things just to go on, okay, the way that the system, that demonic system, wants it to go. We have to challenge the spirit of Jezebel. It must be rooted out, okay, regardless of when or who it's operating. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter, when. We need to deal with it. Obadiah went to tell Ahab that Elijah had come, and Ahab went out to meet Elijah. When Ahab saw him, talking about when Ahab saw Elijah, he exclaimed, "So, is it really you, you troublemaker of Israel?" So Ahab now releases a slanderous accusation against Elijah, and calls Elijah the troublemaker. Do you notice that? Elijah, who is the one speaking God into the environment, into the world, the prophet Elijah, is called a troublemaker. And see, this is what happens, whether it's in your marriage, your family, society, wherever. Once you start to get even close to contending with the Jezebel spirit, again, you could say Jezebel spirit, you could say Satan, demons, the darkness, whatever, that you're going to be demonized. This is what Ahab is doing to Elijah. Oh, look at the troublemaker. Now, he's saying that to gather strength by others who say, oh, well, the king says that Elijah is a troublemaker. So get the collective to rise up and say Elijah's a troublemaker. It's the same spirit that was in operation when Jesus was before Pontius Pilate, okay? And the Jews, the religious Jews, stirred up the people and said, give us Barabbas and crucify Jesus. When Pilate said, what should I do? Crucify him, they said. Who told the people to do that? Or what we call the collective. The spirit of Jezebel in operation within the religious community in the first century temple system, the Pharisees and Sadducees and so on, they stirred that up. Why? Because that's what Jezebel does. Okay? That's what Jezebel does. So here we see Elijah's called a troublemaker. Verse 18, Elijah says, I've made no trouble for Israel. Elijah replied, you and your family are the troublemakers, for you have refused to obey the commands of the Lord and have worshiped the images of Baal instead. Now summon all Israel to join me at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets that you all have of Baal, and another 400 prophets of Ashtoreth, who are supported by who? Jezebel. In Elijah's command, seize all the prophets, round up all these prophets of Jezebel. Don't let a single one get away. So the people seized them all. And Elijah took them down to Kishon Valley. And what did he do? He killed them all. He killed every single one of those prophets. Okay. 450, all right, plus another 400, 850 prophets. Okay. And then, of course, it goes on, the story goes, Elijah released rain. So here we have mighty Elijah. That's amazing. Okay, that showdown at Mount Carmel against the prophets of Baal. But I want you to see something, and this is where. So let me slow down here. So Elijah confronted this evilness of Jezebel that came into Israel. Okay, through Jezebel and King Ahab and so on. Okay, he does confront it, and he shows out. He shows God here, and God shows out. Okay, but look at chapter number 19. Okay, look at chapter 19. We're going to go into that. Remember, I don't want to have you lose sight of this. As we read this story, this is also representative, this story, of God's imminent judgment that came upon apostate Israel for her covenant violations. Remember, the word of God tells us that Israel prostituted herself. She committed abominations unto the Lord. So here we see that judgment, which John the Baptist talks about, that Jesus would bring judgment. Okay, he would baptize you in the Holy Spirit and with fire. That fire baptism, that word fire is speaking of judgment. Okay, and for those of you that want to know more, I'll be having some good news for you in a couple of weeks about eschatology, and you can learn the truth about the end times. Okay, what does it all mean? But here we see in 19, in verse 1, watch this now. When Ahab got home, this is after all this stuff went down, he told Jezebel, so Ahab goes home, tells Jezebel, Queen Jezebel, his wife, everything Elijah had done, including the way that Elijah killed the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you have killed them. Verse number 3. Again, we're talking about confronting Jezebel and her intimidation tactics or techniques. Verse 3 says, the mighty Elijah says Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, the town in Judah, and he left his servant there. He went on alone unto the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree, prayed that he might die. He said, I have had enough. He said, take my life. I'm no better than any of my ancestors who have already died. See, again, remember, Israel killed the prophets, okay? Then he lay down and slept under a broom tree. But while he was sleeping, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. And we'll go on in that in just a second here. But here's what we have to see. Elijah, the mighty man of God, who just stood against 850 false prophets, runs for his life from one woman called Jezebel. And how did Jezebel get the mighty Elijah to scatter, to go running, to get into a place where He's now depressed. He's dealing with tremendous amount of fear, anxiety, depression. Well, Jezebel is using her intimidation. And you have to see this today, that when Jezebel's intimidation is released against you, it's released against you with a vengeance. Okay. This is why, like in the world today, you'll see officials and systems coming up against people that say anything. I mean, it could be what is this stuff, like a PTO meeting where a parent stands up and expresses to the school council, I have a problem with my children learning about alternative lifestyles in second and third grade type thing. I mean, I did that stuff. I said, I'm not going to send my kids to even just sex education. I said, I'll teach my kids about sex education. I don't need the public schools to do that. But today, because of the collective in the Jezebel network, these people are being demonized. They're being put on blast on social media. They're in newspapers. They're on the news and flashing, and they end up getting fined, or they end up, they have to, they get fired from their job and all this other stuff. You're telling me that's not intimidation? What is it? It's intimidation, and it's intimidation with a vengeance. So here, Jezebel, that spirit, will use threats, will use intimidation, verbal threats. And that verbal threat is really what intimidated Elijah so effectively that he reacted with fear, worry. And this guy's going through a tremendous amount of anxiety. He's all over the place. His mind is so discombobulated. He just says, forget it. I'm done. Just kill me now. I just want to die now. Just take me now. Okay. Jezebel uses control and intimidation tactics to confuse and cloud your mind with imaginations that you think, there's imminent destruction for you, or this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's going to lead you to a place of extreme anxiety, you guys. You're going to be all over the place. Oh my God, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? My marriage, my kids, my this, my money, this, that, and the other. Okay. You're going to end up experiencing, come on, somebody, you ever experience discouragement? See, I've been here. I've been there. I've gone through this stuff. My wife has gone through this stuff. Like I said before, we teach and preach this, not out of a book or something that somebody wrote. We went through this stuff, and we still deal with Jezebel. Okay. We still have to contend with that spirit of Jezebel, whether it's in our family, whether it's in business, whether it's in the church, the ministry, whatever. We have to deal with it. Okay. But I've been there, discouraged, feeling hopeless or hopelessness, despair, depression, despondency. Why? Somebody saying something? I kind of hear somebody in the distance. Okay. Jezebel wants to immobilize you. She wants, that spirit wants to lock you up, freeze you, get you stuck. She wants to get you to quit. Now I'm talking to somebody out there. If not